Good morning. Hey, y'all. Hey, happy Tuesday. Happy Taco Tuesday. I'm going to see if I can get this video out to you either today or tomorrow. But I'm actually about to head to the gym, and I'm usually always on the go. But I figured that if I can go ahead and maybe like get a video or two in, sometimes when I'm in a car, I can try to get out more videos. But in this video today, I do want to go over the pros and the cons of long-term care nursing. So one of the pros that I would say working in a long-term care facility as opposed to working in a hospital is you usually have continuity of care. So continuity of care meaning that you pretty much see the same patients, which are residents in the long-term care facility. You see the same patients more so on a daily basis, especially those who are there, who live there as assisted living. You see the same patients. You build more like a family with them. You build a family. You have a bond. You know this person. I mean, you usually create this relationship attachment as something you don't do when you're in the hospital. In the hospital, you constantly have patients that are coming and going. The turnover rate is very, very high in the hospital, and you don't build that bond with your patients. And usually over time, taking care of the same patients, you help build up a routine. A routine is very essential, especially when it comes to like your daily tasks, handling your daily assignment, because it helps you with managing your time. It's really good with giving you a good heads up of learning time management. You can map out what works best for you, what order of tasks that you would do your things that would allow you to do things both effectively and efficiently. So definitely having a routine will help you with your time management, especially when taking care of the same patients. Because in the hospital, if you take care of a patient one day and you working 3 days in a row, chances are you'll get the same patients as long as they're still in the hospital, which you'll pretty much know your patients, and then you have this routine build up, which makes the care much more easier the second and the third day. So another pro is, I would say, 8-hour shifts. So unfortunately, I work in a hospital, so I typically do 12 hours. Now, many years ago, I started off in the hospital where I actually did 8-hour shifts. But I would say maybe 12 years ago, we switched over to doing 12s. So I pretty much, the only time I would do a 8-hour shift was at my old job when I would come in as a resource nurse. And resource just kind of coming in, helping out, doing IVs, doing admissions for patients, doing discharge for nurses, stuff like that. But nowadays, you pretty much have to do 12-hour shifts. Now, give and take, some specialty areas like maybe pre-op, you might have the opportunity to do 410s. But for the most part, you have 8-hour shifts in long-term care facilities. So that can be a plus and less strain on the body. So another pro to working long-term care facilities, and I would say this, especially for LVNs, is that it's a great place that hire LVNs in larger numbers. So I've been working in a hospital total, even before becoming a nurse, for about 15 years. And I would say back in 2009, I started in 2006 in the hospital. So about 2009, we started having LVNs that were kind of, moved away from bedside in the hospital. But in long-term care facilities, you see a lot of LVNs in long-term care facilities. So it's a great place if you're in nursing school for LVN and you want for sure employment. I think that's a great place that a lot of them usually start off. As opposed to, there are sometimes positions in the hospital for LVNs, but the job postings for LVNs are not as large as the job postings for RNs. Now, currently today, like in 2022, I actually work with some LVNs, and they do exactly what I do. Now, there are probably some things that they're not able to do as far as in accepting, maybe taking new admissions. I don't know about that, or even like starting a PCA pump, stuff like that. But like I said, there are a few I can probably count on one hand how many that I currently see now. And that's because they are transitioning over to RN. They're actually in a BSN program. But like I said, long-term care facilities, they do hire LVN in larger numbers. I currently work in a long-term care facility, and there are some pros that I did not list. Please feel free to share those with aspiring LVNs that are out there so that they can be encouraged to continue with their studies and they can know the bonuses of working long-term care facilities, because there are a lot of nurses who do have a lot of love for long-term care facilities, as well as the ones who feel like that there are no pros of long-term care facilities and they only know the cons. But speaking of cons, let's just jump straight into it. Okay, without a doubt, I would say one of the cons is the nurse-patient ratio. Now, comparing long-term care facilities with hospital acute care, in acute care we tend to get med-surg 5 to 6, IMU 3 to 4, ICU 1 to 2. As opposed to long-term care facilities, you have some nurses that say that they do 30 patients to 1 RN, 40 patients to 1 RN. And I mean, with the assistance of a medication aid and with certified nurse assistants that are there to help alleviate some of the burden on nurses, I still feel like that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of room for error and a lot of room for anything that can go wrong. We all know that when being overworked and having a heavy load, sometimes pertinent things does not get done. And when I say that, I mean like in the hospital, like hourly rounding, or in a long-term care facilities, turning patients Q2 hours. You turn in patients to relieve pressure so that patient doesn't get bed sores. And a lot of times you have a lot of patients with bed sores in the nursing facilities. Another thing is offering toileting or whatever. So if you're overworked, it takes you probably almost half the shift just to go through the first round of giving meds. And then you got to turn around and repeat it again for the second set. But so then you're not able to really offer toileting to those patients. And if you don't have enough staff like CNAs to help you, then you're really doomed. You're checking your own vitals. If you're changing your own patients, I can see why some patients are saturated in diapers. I mean, they sit in saturated diapers or soiled diapers with defecation in it. You know, patients who defecate on themselves, patients who urinate on themselves, they have to sit in it if you don't have the adequate amount of staff that'll go and can consistently do the routine things. And with that in mind, sometimes you have family members that walk in and see that. They don't see that the nurses are bouncing and struggling to get other stuff down. They just know that their loved ones hasn't been turned. And some, you got to watch some family members because they'll put cameras in the room. So they know they can justify this resident has not been turned, nor have they been offered the bathroom privileges. So in turn, what happens? They pick up the phone and they call in the state. So in those facilities, you often see someone from the state coming in, auditing, JCO. Everybody's always there because either a report was called or that it's just probably so many complaints that, they spend a lot of time in there, because you have these facilities that are paid, through the government or through the, Medicare or Medicaid, and they're not paying for any patients that are being neglected, any patients that acquire these ulcers and all these other things that can cause them to build infections and all this other stuff. So then you're working under pressure when you have people in there watching you, which can add on to the stress. So I'll say all that to say the patient-nurse ratio is like a domino effect. Often due to all of this, being an LVN working in long-term care facilities, after you encounter so much stress, so much breakdown, so much being thrown at you for work that you're not able to get to, that just drives you to really want to go back to school, become an RN, where you have more opportunities. So like I said, there is employment for LVNs, but it seems like they offer opportunities in long-term care facility as opposed to the hospital. But when you become an RN, you have numerous of opportunities presented to you, whether you're working for the insurance company, the hospitals, the clinics, everywhere. There's so many opportunities. There are opportunities for LVNs, don't get me wrong, but like I said, the opportunities for nursing probably triple. RN nursing pretty much triples in numbers. So another thing some people would say a con for working in a long-term care facility. Now this can go hand in hand. So like as a RN, you probably feel like the pay, you could be a bit overworked and underpaid. I say that unless you're working for an agency or working through an agency where they typically offer more money. But if you're hired on as a RN, and if you was to compare that with the salary you'll make, well, with the hourly pay you'll make in a hospital, sometimes it can be a little lower. Now, I actually recently, maybe about a year or two, I re-inquired about going into a long-term care facility. And the rates that they quoted me, it would have been more like a $10 like reduction in what I'm currently working as a staff nurse in the hospital. So, and again, some people have different experiences depending on location, just depends on a lot of things, probably your. So of course, when, you know, trying to fill out for employment, you know, at another facility, a lot of things are key factors. Length of employment, you know, length of experience. Who do you go through? If you go through an agency, or just, you know, just certifications, or your skills, what you can bring to them, what kind of assets you could be to that company. A lot of things that can determine your pay. But typically, well, like I said, from my experience, the last time I checked, the rate I was quoted, no, for all the type of work you do and for the amount of patient load you have, I just, you know, that can be a con for me. All right, y'all. Last but not least, this one can be applied to both hospital or long-term care facility. But I really feel, especially with long-term care facility, with the patient load you have, but I would say the physical effects that it has on your body. When I first started off in the hospital, like I said, in 2006, I used to see nurses walking with a limp, walking sideways. Like literally, I'm wondering, did this happen from working here so many years or what? But let's fast forward about 15 years later. I see now why people be walking with limps, backaches, have to have back surgeries, because it's very brutal on the body, you know, especially you, like I said, you have sometimes you're short staffed and you're trying to do a lot on your own because you don't want to wait for help, or you might not have help. So that can be pretty brutal on the body. And if you in the long-term care facility and you're having 30, 40 patients to one nurse, and you don't have a tech or a med aid or anybody, and you know, a lot of the patients in long-term care facility, they are what you call dead weight. Like a lot of total care patients are very heavy. And if you don't have, some people, they don't like to use the equipment like the Hoyer lifts or the gait belts, things like that, to make transfers and lifting patients safer, because they feel like it takes a little more time to do that. But in return, you kind of save your back. But also you have so many people that are counting on you every second, so you don't have that time on your hand. So all I would say is that over time, working in long-term care facilities can cause some physical stress on your body. All right, y'all, I have rambled enough. I'm going to go ahead and go to the gym. It was kind of easier for me to just do it now instead of trying to get all, you know, glammed up and, you know, sit down and have this conversation. But I just wanted to get the information out. And if I have to, some of my videos will just be quick. Let me give it to you videos just like this. But if you like what you see, go ahead and thumbs up the video. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you haven't already, go ahead and join Nurse T's gang, and tell a friend to subscribe to your girl Nurse T. As always, take care and be blessed.